Welcome to In the Kitchen with Randy. Today we're doing a recipe from one of the subscribers. He asked that we do a stuffed pork chop recipe. Now my grandmother Hoover was famous for her stuffed pork chops, but unfortunately nobody wrote down the recipe. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do one that I've developed. What I have here is two nice, beautiful pork chops cut out of the pork loin. And what I've done is I've gone ahead and I've butterflied these chops. So each of these chops weighs right around 8 ounces, give or take just a little bit. What we're going to do is we're going to open these chops up and we're going to season them. Now I like to season all the levels of my food. That way when it all gets done, it's properly seasoned. So let's just start. What we're using here is just a little bit of Lowry seasoning salt. We're just going to sprinkle it on the top and on the bottom. We don't want to get crazy with it, but we don't want to be stingy either. So just season it up the way you would like to season it. So now the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to put just a little bit of char on the inside of these. And we're going to use this little cast iron grill and we're going to get it nice and hot. And then we're just going to put a little bit of a char on the inside of those chops. Now make sure that this pan is good and hot before I throw those chops on. Oh yeah, we got a nice sizzle there. See that? That means our pan is good and hot. So what we're going to do is just going to lay these chops on. And we're just going to sear, get a little bit of a char on the inside of those. So sear. So all we did is just put a nice little char on the inside of those. And we're just going to set those aside and let them rest. Set our griddle aside. And we're going to get ourselves another little pan here. What we're going to do now is we're going to start making our stuffing that we're making. So for our stuffing we're going to be using some dry bread. We're going to be using some onion, some celery, some chicken broth, some spices, and of course some butter. So let's get started. What I'm doing right now is I'm putting about 2 tablespoons of butter in this pan. We're going to melt it down. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and put the onions in. We're going to put in about a half a cup of chopped onions. And we have about 3/4 cup of chopped celery here that we're putting in. Now you notice that I'm using the leaves in there also. I like to use the leaves in here. Leaves have a lot of flavor. So I like to use those in my stuffing. Get all that goodness into the pool there. Let's go ahead and we'll just saute that down a little bit. While that's cooking, let's go ahead and get our bread ready. What I have is about 2 cups of bread that's been dried. You can cut it in slices, chunks, whatever you want, however you want to do it. To that, I'm going to add in about 2 teaspoons of rubbed sage. I'm going to add in a half a teaspoon of thyme. We're going to add in about 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. Now you've noticed I didn't add any salt in there. The reason I didn't is because I'm using a chicken broth, and the chicken broth will have plenty of salt in it. Plus we also salted our chops, so we don't want to add too much salt to this recipe. We want to keep our flavors good and clean. Now I'm going to go ahead and add some more butter in here. I'm just adding another 2 tablespoons of butter. So that means we're now up to about 4 tablespoons of butter in here. This butter is going to provide us some moisture later on and an awful lot of flavor. So now I'm going to add in a little bit more butter. So I'm adding a total, I have a total of 6 tablespoons of butter. We're cooking out some of the moisture out of the onions and the celery. Plus we have all that beautiful butter in there. Now our onions are becoming translucent, which is just exactly what we're looking for. And everything in here looks like it's pretty well cooked right now. So we're going to go ahead and stop the cooking on this. And we're going to go ahead and add all this into our bread. We want to get all that beautiful juice in there, all that wonderful flavor. Okay, so now we've got the bread in here, we've got the onions, we've got the celery, we've got the sage, the thyme, and the pepper. Get everything mixed in well, and now we're going to start adding our broth. Now I have about a cup of chicken broth, and we may not use it all, we'll see. We'll put about half of it in, and we're going to mix this up and let it all soak together. All right, so we need a little bit more moisture. We're just going to add some more into it. That's about another quarter cup of moisture in there. So now we have a total of about 3/4 of a cup of moisture. And all I want to do is make sure that everything gets absorbed some of that beautiful chicken broth. I don't want it to become super soggy. I just want it to become moist. And we're going to get just a little bit more. Now remember, I didn't add any salt to this recipe because I think I have plenty in that chicken broth. This is not a homemade chicken broth, so it comes with a little bit of salt in it. We're going to go ahead now and we're going to build our pan good. We have our chops that we have put a little char on the inside of those. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some of our stuffing, a nice handful of it, going to lay it right in there. We're going to place that in our pan. Take a nice handful of that. Put it in the chop. And place the chop right there. Now, looks like we have some extra stuffing, which I happen to enjoy. So I'm just going to lay this extra stuffing right along the chops. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and just set everything together here. I'm going to put it in a 350-degree oven. And we're going to cook it until the pork is done, 160 degrees. And that should take right around an hour. But we're going to check it about every 20 minutes just to be sure of where it is.